Hello viewers and welcome to my review of Governing Body Update number 7 2021 live from the bunker. I am joined for this update review live stream by my co-host Jana Montero. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm very well indeed. It's been too long. It's great to have you back on the channel.
It's actually almost a year anniversary, honestly. Happy early birthday.
I too have been keeping track of the fact that it's the anniversary. It may look like you'd cut me off guard there, but trust me, it's on my in my diary. And I figure what better way to celebrate the anniversary of your appearance than to look at some cult propaganda.
You're sort of sounding like a robot.
I sound like...
Yeah.
Is my connection bad?
You sound like a robot. I don't know if anybody else hears you as a robot or if it's
time
me.
To go to the comments. Do I sound like a robot, viewers? Please indicate. If I do sound like one, I hope it's R2-D2. Sounds fine to me. Says Chiku.
Oh, okay. I see that. All right.
Chikuhitsu.
Try this.
And it's fine according to governing body language. So hopefully it's just a connection problem at your end, and hopefully you're able to follow along. But yeah, it's a really interesting video that we're going to be looking over. Obviously, we have these governing body updates now in the COVID era, usually touching on COVID, but usually also straying into other areas in which the organization or Jehovah's Witnesses apparently need to be updated. So we're going to be looking at update number 7. Many thanks indeed to John Michael for your incredibly kind super chat. Let me see if I can bring it up real quick. There we go. Hello, Lloyd from Portland, Oregon. Appreciate you and the whole community here. Likewise, John. We don't have producer Bob with us for this particular show. Unfortunately, producer Bob is having some well-deserved time off with her girlfriends. But the show must go on, and what we will be doing later on is having our viewer invasion. So if you've not experienced a viewer invasion before, it's very simple. I dump a link to this broadcast into the live chat. If you click on it, you should be able to connect to the show, and we bring viewers on one after the other. All we ask is that you show your camera. This is purely a criteria to deter trolls. Show your camera and keep all comments respectful and on topic. And yeah, we'll see how we get on with the viewer invasion later. That should be interesting. But what say you? We get on with this show. So I'm going to launch straight into Governing Body Update number 7, hosted by... I've been calling him Gerrit Lösch all these years, but I guess it should be pronounced Gerrit Lösch due to the umlauts.
I'm going to stick with Lösch.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. Here we go.
Dear brothers and sisters, I'm so happy to share with you this update.
He's happy.
It's been amazing to see the kingdom work move ahead, even during this pandemic. Various branches are reporting all-time peaks in the number of publishers, pioneers, meeting attendance, and Bible studies. Many have reported peaks in the memorial attendance. For example, the Philippines branch reported that over 739,000 attended the memorial this year. That's more than 3 times the number of publishers. 100 congregations, mostly in urban areas, reported a memorial attendance of at least 500. That means that 50,000 attended the memorial in just those 100 congregations.
Okay, so he is starting strong. And he's pushing this idea that the organization's doing superbly.
Growing and growing.
Which I guess when you're in the business of cherry picking figures, I guess you can make an argument for it. It won't be a very good argument compared with the figure for percentage of increase over 2019. in the 2020 grand totals, which, if I'm not mistaken, Joanna, was the first negative in 42 years, minus 0.6.
Yeah, I feel like I remember you saying that. I was like, I know he's going to have all the numbers.
Yeah.
It was at a time like this when I was like, too bad I threw away all my old yearbooks.
When you have a global organization keeping all manner of statistics, there are going to be any number of statistics that you can cherry pick to paint a rosy picture. Surely the statistic that really matters to the organization is whether it's actually growing or not. And you can use all this language about the preaching work moving forward. That seems to be the go-to phrase. Ultimately, if the organization's moving forward purely in time and not in numbers, this is a problem for the organization. And having made that emphatic point, I'm going to proceed with the video.
In various parts of the earth, many struggle to obtain food. With the assistance of hundreds of disaster relief committees, we continue to help our brothers. For example, in Venezuela, each month we're providing an average of 130 tons of food to 25,000 brothers in need. One 90-year-old pioneer sister said, "I know that the aid comes from Jehovah, but he uses brothers that I do not even know, and yet they love me and help me. Thank you, dear family."
Yeah, again, he seems to be pushing this idea that there is something remarkable about the organization. We're going to hear later on him characterize all of this as quote-unquote proof that the organization is being blessed.
Evidence.
But
I used to actually, I used to fall for this part. Like, I used to like seeing the videos of people helping out during relief efforts, as if, you know, other charities and other religions don't do the exact same thing. But when I was preemie, I was definitely falling for this.
Yeah. You know, I've made the argument so many times, it kind of feels silly to repeat it, but this is when it's disaster relief work that's purely for members of your own club, and you're literally directing help towards people on condition that they share your views. I'm just not so sure it's something to really be jumping up and down about. And also, isn't there that scripture? I can't think of which verse it is off the top of my head.
I got it for you.
Go on. See
because
if you've
it
read
came
my
to
mind.
my head too. It was Luke 6:33.
Go on.
And it says, "If you are doing good to those doing good to you, of what credit is to you? For even the sinners do the same."
Yes, that's actually one that I've quoted before on the channel. You know, it's how is it something to brag about? There's also that verse, let your left hand not know what your right hand is doing. You know, so if you know, when you start bragging about your efforts when it comes to disaster relief and using them in video propaganda, it kind of calls into question why you're doing it to begin with, because the argument can then be leveled. Are you not also a little bit doing this so you've got something to talk about in your next governing body update, you know?
And then who are you really bringing glory to? Yourself?
Exactly. Many thanks indeed to Cody B. Keep up the great work. That's actually a really huge super chat. So thank you so much indeed, Cody B. Really appreciate the support of the channel. And yeah, you know, you can, if you want to, interpret this as proof of Jehovah's backing. I suppose what you then need to do is present evidence that there are no other religions doing this.
Right. And I also, when they were talking about the food and quoted the old woman saying that the help is coming from all sorts of places, it made me think of that American COVID scam where they were getting the food boxes and just scribbling Trump's name off of it, basically.
Yeah, yeah, there was
They must have
something.
been doing a better job over there to hide the
Yeah,
fact that it's from somewhere else.
Mark O'Donnell covered that quite well on JW Watch. There was some jiggery pokery going on with the food packages that were distributed by the US government.
The brothers.
But yeah, she's saying in this experience, oh, I'm being given food by people I don't even know. Yeah, it's called love bombing, and they're giving you that food again because you are part of their religion. If you weren't part of their religion and they were still giving you the food, then that would be something worth talking about.
Right.
So yeah, I'm not so far convinced with this proof that Gerrit is presenting us.
It's heartwarming to see how Jehovah is helping our brothers and sisters in Venezuela and around the globe. We thank all of you for making that possible by means of your donations.
Yeah, with the donations. It feels, again, like that's just another reminder, They didn't need to say that. We kind of know that, the aid packages or whatever haven't just materialized from thin air and that they've needed to be bought and that aid work costs money. But it feels a little bit like they've just leapt on an opportunity there to remind Jehovah's Witnesses to get their wallets out.
Yeah, I remember when I was still very much in that, even when I made donations, I always put it towards the Kingdom Hall Fund, because at least I got a report afterwards of where the money went. But when I put it into the worldwide organization, I had no idea what it went to.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, when there isn't actually any transparency, I think there have been they've done stuff before where they've said, "Oh, this is the disaster work that we did in this particular year, and this is how much that we've spent." Mm-hmm. But you don't get any kind of transparency where they say, "This is how much we received in donations worldwide, and of this is the percentage that we spent on disaster relief."
Yeah, so, I'd love to know what Gary's annual salary is.
Wouldn't we all? Wouldn't we all? Yeah, goodness knows. Look,
and if it's more than the disaster relief fund,
I would be very, very surprised if governing body members and indeed governing body helpers were getting the exact same remuneration or expenses payments that ordinary Bethelites on the factory floor are getting, put it that way. But until one of them defects, I guess we won't know, or someone defects that does the accounts. But yeah, a bit of transparency would go a long way in reassuring witnesses that their funds really are being spent where it's needed.
In our last governing body update, Brother Hurd mentioned that about 50% of the worldwide Bethel family have been vaccinated so far.
He changed topics quick, didn't he? In other news.
Initially, it seemed impossible to obtain vaccines in some countries of the world, but it's been amazing to see that now...
Do you notice the language there? Initially, it seemed impossible to obtain vaccines in some countries. That's because there was a staggered rollout. You know, if I, correct me if I'm wrong, Jana.
Revisionist history.
But the way it worked was the vaccines were being produced in a handful of countries, and there had to be decisions made as to how exactly these vaccines would find their way into countries that weren't themselves producing vaccines. And so, of course, it's not going to be a case of, I've developed a vaccine, and instantly the next day all around the world it's there. There are obviously going to be distribution problems. And it's not just a case of it seemed to be impossible. It was actually impossible to begin with for you to get the vaccine.
Not only that, but everything was shut down. The distributions, they were having trouble. Then remember when that boat got stuck in the middle of the canal, and then that was like stopping
There was a boat
shipping.
stuck in a canal. Exactly. Oh, I remember now. I thought this has gone off on a really weird tangent. But yes, you're right. I think the Suez Canal, there was a boat stuck.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah, no, he did the padding. He gave you the sweet stuff first, and now he's about to.
but it's just the use of language that really riles me. It wasn't that it seemed that it was impossible. It was impossible. And what he's, of course, now going to do is that old trick of only with Jehovah's backing could we have made sure that the Bethelites in all countries received the vaccine.
80%.
More than 80% of our worldwide Bethel family, that is more than 19,000 Bethelites, are vaccinated. And we are doing what we can to assist the branch offices that have not been able to obtain vaccines. As you know, by keeping the Bethel family safe, we protect the flow of spiritual food and support spiritual activities worldwide.
This was quite interesting for me. By keeping the Bethel families safe, we support the flow of spiritual food. Because obviously we had the leaked vaccine letter where it was seemingly one rule for Bethelites, another rule for the rank and file. If you're a Bethelite, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, go to the relevant JW Watch report. If you're a Bethelite, it's not just a case of it's totally a free choice. It's more a case of this is what we're expecting you to do. You don't really have a good reason to refuse the vaccine. That went out to the Bethelites, whereas to the rank and file, we're still
they
waiting.
live in a communal, closed-in compound. So, they would have to.
True, yeah, but they've been making this big thing about free choice, personal choice. And that's the language that we've had on update after update after update. And what we've learned through that leaked letter is that it's not really about personal choice anymore when you're a Bethelite. It is still, as far as we know, a case of personal choice for rank and file. But it seems as though one of the reasons why there is this double standard is because they view the worldwide Bethel family as part of the channel, as slightly more important. We need to keep the Bethelites safe, including the governing body.
Right.
Because otherwise, shock, horror, where will we get our spiritual food from?
Yeah, one of the things they like to throw out is that there's not a hierarchy in the organization. It's called an organization.
We're all equal, but some are more equal than others, seems to be the message here, yeah.
On behalf of the governing body, thank you, dear brothers and sisters, for your tremendous cooperation with all the arrangements during the pandemic. There have been many adjustments in a short time, but you've done so well. We truly love you for your fine spirit.
So he's obviously reading off an auto cue at the moment, which is fine. I just think that when you have things on the auto cue like, we truly love you, you're going to have to say it a certain way or it just doesn't work.
Evoke some emotion behind it.
You're going to have to emote a little bit and you're going to have to emote convincingly.
I think this next part is the way that he phrases it is really interesting too.
Okay.
In working shoulder to shoulder with us.
I've saved the next part for the,
He said, we love you basically for working shoulder to shoulder.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I cut him off. Okay. Yeah. So it's conditional love, isn't it?
Exactly.
We truly
set
love
it up
you.
right there.
We truly love you.
If they weren't working
so
shoulder to shoulder with him, if they weren't part of the family supporting the Bethelites and them.
Good catch, Jana. Good catch. Yeah, but yeah, it's so artificial, isn't it? It's artificial the way he says it. Again, reading it off the auto cue, and it's artificial in essence, because like you say, it's all completely conditional on working shoulder to shoulder.
While we all have had changes in our routine, some of our circuit overseers who serve in foreign lands have had major changes. They had to return to their home countries during the pandemic. Even so, some continue to serve the congregations in their circuits via Zoom, despite being in a different country and in a different time zone. Let's hear from one.
A few months into the pandemic, my father's health was failing. So we made the decision to return to the States and assist my mother. Although in the beginning we didn't think we would be here so long, it turned out that the surge in the pandemic prevented us from going back to our assignment in the circuit in Bolivia. Well, being displaced, we just weren't sure if we were going to be able to serve and complete our assignment effectively.
We felt that we needed to make the necessary adjustments to have the right attitude. So fervent prayer really helped us to get the right mindset, and being able to see how Jehovah answered those prayers is very faith strengthening.
I paused it there because, so here we have Daniel and I think it's Isela Lopez, and I don't know whether I'm pronouncing her name correctly. I hate mispronouncing names, but assuming it is Isela, Isela says, we had to make the necessary adjustments. That's totally Watchtower speak, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Then she says, fervent prayer helped. The word fervent is superfluous, you know? That's, again, Watchtower language. You know, when you say prayer, it's just assumed that you're doing it fervently or you're doing it sincerely. You don't have to specify... Yeah. You know, we wouldn't be assuming it was non-fervent prayer if you hadn't said fervent.
We were just passively praying about my father's health and our living situation, you know.
Yeah, it was a passing prayer. It was a very brief, non-specific, vague prayer.
Another thing about this, well, there's so much about this. But
by the way, I want to see Daniel playing that guitar behind.
Oh yeah, The placement of the guitar is fantastic. And I was like, when does he have time for that? Is he just waiting for paradise and to dance around the fruit tables with it? Because he doesn't have time for that, being a circuit overseer.
Sure.
But then again, with the hierarchy of the situation, there's kind of no reason for her to be in this once you hear all the information he gives. She's literally a prop. And the way that congregations treat circuit overseers' wives, that's literally the only reason she's there, is for the status of it.
You think that they're making a show of being interested in her situation, even though, you know, like you say, a circuit overseer is a circuit overseer. The wife doesn't really have any real role other than to accompany,
to support their husband.
Yeah, good point. And she really does share a few stories. I think that's one thing circuit overseers' wives do is that they accumulate stories, don't they? And then and then during the circuit overseers visit, they'll put their hand up and everyone will be amazed at
by the comment.
We were in this congregation and someone lost their arm and oh no, what happened next? And yes, so because they're visiting like over a dozen different congregations in the space of a year, they get the real goss, don't they? They get some really interesting stories, and yeah, that seems to be one. And she's going to regale us with some stories as this progresses.
Jehovah's blessing this arrangement. It's the arrangement that's been put in place.
By the way, I thought that was a monobrow to begin with. But I've come to the conclusion.
Ouch.
I've come to the conclusion it isn't. It's just a trick of the light.
It's glasses.
It's just the shadows. It's the shadows.
And it's what we're using. We're making the best of it. But we're having success because Jehovah's behind it. We've had brothers who are now qualified to be publishers, unbaptized publishers. There's brothers who've dedicated their lives and gotten baptized during this pandemic. One brother in particular has so much enthusiasm for phone witnessing that last month he was able to report over 100 return visits, and he was able to show over 200 videos to different ones.
He was able to show over 200 videos. What? That whole process. Did you ever do that, by the way? Because I never was called upon.
Before the videos became part of service.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I can't imagine thrusting a video into someone's face.
No. Here, watch this.
And I don't know how you would do that in a pandemic unless he's literally just sending links and counting the links that he's sending out. Because how on earth can he practice social distancing and know for sure that people have watched a video?
Right. I mean, it's not like it shows them views like yours do. So, like, out.
Yeah, that's interesting.
One Bible student loves her study so much and also attending meetings that she's willing to walk 1 hour each way in order to have a good signal on her phone so she can tie into her study and also to the meetings.
That seemed a little bit extreme, didn't it? So someone studying with Jehovah's Witnesses, and did they mention this is in Bolivia? I think they did.
I don't know.
It's some South American country. And someone who's studying with the witnesses is willing to walk an hour from their home just to get signal. Goodness knows where they're stopping, because, I don't know, is it in a field somewhere? Is it by the road? Oh, now I've got the bars. Now I can tune into the study.
Tune into this, yeah. It's indoctrination session.
Exactly. And it's so much effort to be going to basically be lied to. It's heartbreaking, isn't it?
It is heartbreaking. But you know that the scripture that they would use to back that up is about when Jesus' family made the journey so that they could be counted. So it's important to be present and to be counted.
You're remembering all the verses today, aren't you, Jana? Very impressed. Very impressed.
No,
Extra
but
points.
when he was talking about the 100 return visits of phone witnessing,
yeah,
there's no way.
Right.
Absolutely no way. I pioneered without a pandemic, and unless the pandemic, I mean, sure, everybody was going through some mental health issues, and maybe they just wanted somebody to talk to, and that's why he has return visits. But like, people would hang up as soon as you started reading from the script.
Well, I guess it depends how we're counting a return visit. So, for example, maybe they bothered someone and the person wasn't quite emphatic enough the first time in indicating that they shouldn't call again. And
I'm eating dinner.
As soon as they picked...
I'm always eating dinner.
Yeah, it's not a good time right now, George. I'm actually sitting down for a meal with my family. Right. Oh, well, maybe I can call you again another time. Yeah, you call me another time. and then
exactly
George calls.
How it would go every single time. So 100 return visits.
Then George calls a second time and he's like, F off. Yes, return visits. Return visits. He picks up. So, yeah.
It counts. Counts,
yeah.
He answered.
Yeah, it all goes in the numbers. So, yeah, I guess it would depend on how they're counting them.
Throughout this past year, I've learned that Jehovah has never left us. He's been in total control of every situation. He's been able to direct his organization, his people, exactly in the place that we need to be. This has all been proof that Jehovah will never abandon us.
I don't know. Is it proof?
In total control of every situation, including his dad being sick, I guess.
Including what? You mean including thousands of Jehovah's Witnesses dying? What's the latest figure? Is it something like 20,000 that have died? How can you say he's in total control when it's actually causing witnesses to die? It's weird language to use, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Again, it seems to be just typical propaganda where they cherry pick stuff that they feel makes their arguments for them and just ignores all of the unsavory stuff. So,
And he started it by saying his dad got ill.
yeah, is that part of the plan? You know,
Right.
was Jehovah in control when your dad
Of
got
that.
ill?
He was like, you know what? This circuit overseer needs more trials.
Yeah. And if his dad had made an unlikely recovery, you know, that would be bundled in with the proof,
But
wouldn't it, as well?
we're not going to mention his dad ever again, so
Yeah.
hopefully he's okay. I don't know.
How encouraging to hear how our brothers are remaining united and spiritually active. But we do have to continue to guard our unity. What is unity?
So now we have a question that we need to answer. Gerrit Lösch, Gerrit Lösch asking the question there, what is unity? And we're going to have an opportunity here to see if we get the right answer. So option A is it a type of sandwich? Easy on the mayo with my unity.
Right.
Is that something that you would say? Is it a body fluid? Doctor, I woke up this morning and there was a small puddle of unity on my bed sheets. Is it a characteristic of cults? I don't know. It seems maybe it could be.
Do I get a lifeline?
You can phone a friend if you like. Or is it an item of lingerie? So I am at a loss at this point, viewers. I personally, because I don't have a rudimentary knowledge of basic words, I'm going to have to wait for Gerrit Lösch to tell me what unity is. It could be any of those things as far as I'm concerned.
It's been defined as oneness.
Oh, it's
a
oneness.
Condition of harmony.
Okay. So it's just, what is it with them doing this? What is it with them doing this? They do it in almost every.
It's not new, because I actually was looking at, because this whole part he's about to do about unity is very much warning you against independent thinking. And so I went on jw.org and I did a little independent thinking search, and it actually defines like independence in one of the 1972 Watchtower articles. And I'm like, okay, so this has been going on forever.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, unity is going to be a big deal for organizations that want to control people. You can't control people if there isn't unity, if people can just do their own thing and say their own thing. But what is it with this explaining rudimentary words and, talking down to the audience as though we don't know what basic words mean?
Infantilizing.
Do they genuinely expect the audience to not know what unity means? Or is it just a way of tricking people? They just want to
define it for themselves.
Or is it like we say, infantilization, trying to kind of trick people into thinking that they're stupid, because if you think you're stupid, you'll be more dependent on them for instruction and guidance, Very, very odd.
Note how the Apostle Paul describes our role in maintaining unity at Ephesians chapter 4, verse 3. There we read, earnestly endeavoring to maintain the oneness of the Spirit in the uniting bond of peace. Note that it takes effort to maintain our unity. Paul said that we must earnestly endeavor or work hard at it. What could pose a danger to our unity? What if we became too emotionally involved in issues that are divisive?
Isn't it interesting? They don't want Jehovah's Witnesses becoming too emotionally involved in issues that are, quote unquote, divisive. You mean like the child safeguarding, that sort of issue? Well, we're going to find out more specifically that this is kind of to do with with the coronavirus. But
Yeah, and I don't know how politicized it is in other countries, but I know how politicized it is here. So
right, so it probably is more to do with trying to, and we're going to see this with trying to direct people away from conspiracy theories, but specifically anti-vaxxer conspiracy theories. But just this whole idea of, don't let your emotions take over, and don't just get, swayed by divisive issues. Again, it's in the interests of Gerrit Lösch for everyone to be on the same page, namely
Right.
the page that he's written,
But it's also that emotional control. Don't emotionally incline yourself to these outside influences.
Yeah.
However, let me show you this emotionally charged video.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. Only they get to control people emotionally. Yeah.
The Bible foretold at 2 Timothy chapter 3 that men would be lovers of themselves, not open to any agreement, and fierce. We see this in the world today. People are not open to any agreement. They quickly become fierce, taking strong positions on all types of issues.
I don't know what history books Gerrit Lösch has been reading, but it seems fairly self-evident to me that throughout history, you've had some people agreeing and some people disagreeing.
Forever and ever.
For as long
take
as
the law of
anyone can
gravity,
remember.
for instance.
So you have, I don't know, people, many people in the Republican Party, and you have many people in the Democrat Party, and those two sets of people disagree with each other. But haven't you had exactly the same thing throughout history, whether it's empires or kingdoms or whatever? You've always had some groups that agree with each other and other groups who strongly disagree with them, to the point where they're willing to take up arms against each other. And what he's trying to do here is make the argument that we are
sign of the times.
Yes, that there is conspicuous disagreement in the times that we're living in. And having made that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. He should be showing us the evidence. Of course, he's not going to do that. He's just going to make this cute throwaway remark and move on to the next point. So infuriating.
As Christians, we are no part of the world. We stay out of those debates. For example, who would have thought that wearing a mask to prevent the spread of disease could become an issue? From the time when we were little children, our parents taught us to cover our mouth when we coughed or sneezed. In his precious word, Jehovah outlined many practical measures that would prevent the spread of disease. So how could wearing a mask become controversial for some? Where is that thinking coming from?
Where's the thinking coming from, Jana? Satan, I guess.
They asked me that when I told them that when the brothers were trying to save me when I turned in they were like, where is this thinking coming from? I was like, my brain?
But he's doing this again. It's so infuriating. Who would have thought that wearing a mask to protect other people and to protect yourself would be controversial? Well, who would have thought that not covering up child abuse would be controversial? Mm-hmm. So basically, if it's something that threatens the organization, and specifically threatens a demographic within the organization that includes him and his colleagues, it matters. But if it's children and the safeguarding of children, well, that's open for debate. Right. So the double standard here, and the double standard regarding child abuse in the coronavirus pandemic has been maddening all along, and the way they yield to the directions of Caesar, when on the pandemic when it suits them, but they won't, for example, sign up to the redress scheme in Australia straight away, even though Caesar's telling them to do that. It's a total double standard. But yeah, I just wish they wouldn't be so overt in their manipulation.
Do you though?
We have to be careful. All of us are exposed to worldly thinking on television, on the internet, at work, or at school. There are many websites that promote conspiracy theories. If we are not careful, we could become emotionally involved in these debates. We could allow ourselves to be guided by the voice of strangers instead of listening to Jehovah's channel, the faithful and discreet slave.
Isn't, quote unquote, Jehovah's channel one big conspiracy theory?
Right.
You know, that they literally say that there's this one group of people who will be saved when Armageddon comes imminently, and that the rest of the world is under the control of Satan. You know, how is that demonstrably different from the likes of David Icke saying that we're being ruled over by lizard people?
It sounds like him and his brother are on different pages about this, because that segment with the ICSA with Paul Gillies. So he's over here saying that it's chosen, and Paul Gillies is saying it'd be presumptuous for me to say that we were the chosen ones.
No, that was Jeffrey Jackson.
Oh,
in
Jeffrey
the Australian
Jackson.
Royal
Yeah.
Commission. Yeah.
So
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
It sounds like they're both vehemently on two different sides of that.
Yeah, he actually mentions the faithful slave and the faithful slave being the governing body 3 times, and we're going to revisit that later on, because it's almost like he's trying to drill home this message. If the faithful slave really is the governing body, he shouldn't... Oh, that's it. He says, Jehovah's channel, the faithful slave. Well, if the faithful slave, otherwise known as the governing body, really is Jehovah's channel, you know, you shouldn't have to keep repeating it. If you do repeat it constantly, it kind of makes you look a little bit insecure. But he's going to repeat that language 3 times.
Actually, the entire video, I essentially counted how many times it talks about Jehovah's channel and the spirit directed and following the direction of Jehovah's channel and how they're appointed. 12 full times.
I think there might be a big boat stuck in Jehovah's channel right now. It's blocking.
Exactly, the boat.
Blocking the flow of spirit. Yeah. I can do illustrations too.
As we face the end of this system of things, this will become more and more essential to our safety and spirituality.
It's a threat.
That's why we appreciate you, dear brothers and sisters, so much. As soon as you discern that Jehovah's Spirit is directing the governing body to go in a certain way, you are quick to follow. And as a result, we enjoy precious unity.
I think my question here would be, do they have a choice?
Right.
Is there really a choice as to whether they follow when they receive instructions from the governing body?
And then this whole thing, the quick to follow, to be obedient, made me think of the convention where they were kind of stuck on Abraham.
Yeah.
Because Abraham was quick to follow that direction without question. He was like, kill my son? Yeah, sure. Anything for you, Jehovah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
got
Start sharpening knife.
done.
Yeah.
And that's essentially how quick they want you to follow them.
And they also say things like, you know, it may not seem logical from a human standpoint, but we still want you to do it. And they've actually used the coronavirus pandemic to drill home that message. It was actually in, I think, some of the earlier updates before I was doing these rebuttals. But
he's going to go deeper into how obedient you should be there.
Sure.
This reminds me of the Bible example.
I like the way he keeps doing that, by the way. That's a gesture in the UK, at least, for I'm a little bit crazy.
Cuckoo.
Yeah.
of Naaman. Through a messenger, the prophet Elisha told Naaman he'd be healed from his leprosy if he bathed 7 times in the Jordan River. How did Naaman react? Let's read together 2 Kings 5, 11 and 12. At this, Naaman became indignant and started to leave, saying, "Here I said to myself, he will come out to me and stand here and call on the name of Jehovah his God, moving his hand back and forth over the leprosy to cure it. Are not the Abana and the Pharpar, the rivers of Damascus, better than all the waters of Israel? Can I not wash in them and become clean?" With that he turned and went away in a rage. Naaman had his own idea about how he was going to be cured. He felt strongly about it. But Jehovah had a different idea. To be cured, Naaman would have to humble himself and
That is a remarkable picture, isn't it?
strongly about it. But Jehovah
Yeah, that's an impressive beard. And he seems to be even bigger, doesn't he?
Yeah, he definitely spent time like doing the individual curls and just like holding them in.
Yeah, and this was before Remington or any of those kind of personal male grooming products.
Right.
But apparently he had servants, so maybe there was one servant, because slavery was okay in those times, as we know.
My
So
thing
maybe,
is with Naaman, I feel like he was asking logical questions.
yeah.
He's like, "Why that body of water? I'm literally
be
right
the
here. There's
equivalent-
water right there.
It
Why
would
not?"
be a little bit like today saying, "Invectamin, really?" It seems like you're asking me to do something a bit weird. But yeah, so he's obviously got someone to take care of those very precise curls. And
Yeah,
I think
they're
the
amazing.
difference in height is because he might be on a horse or camel, maybe.
Yeah, he's got the reins in his hand, so he must be.
One thing that I find very unconvincing, though, is the sophistication of armor in Bible times. If I can just deviate slightly, I don't know whether you've noticed, but in all of the Bible dramas, whenever they show soldiers, the most they ever do in terms of armor is a leather tunic, like a leather apron, and
I mean, that's where
over
people
their
stab,
tunic.
right? They just go straight for the jug.
I just feel like if I was going into a stabbing situation, holding a piece of leather against my chest would not make me feel safer. And yeah, I'm just not convinced that this is how soldiers would have dressed in those times. Anyway, I'm deviating now.
Jehovah had a different idea. To be cured, Naaman would have to humble himself and follow direction from Jehovah's channel. Naaman was struggling, but his servants got the point. What did they tell him to do? And what was the result? Let's read in verses 13 and 14. His servants now approached him and said, "My father, if the prophet had told you to do something extraordinary,
He made his
would you
servants
not
call him
do it?
Daddy.
How much more then, since he only said to you, 'Wash and be clean'?" At that he went down and plunged into the Jordan 7 times, according to the word of the man of the true God. Then his flesh was restored like the flesh of a little boy, and he became clean.
So I guess, I mean, this is quite a long rambling point that Gerrit Lösch is making here. It seems to be a little bit of a stretch to suggest that this really has any real relevance to the pandemic, because this is talking about someone being cured of leprosy, and it's being invoked in the narrative of you need to listen to the organization in order to survive or what have you.
Right.
I don't know.
The scripture, the part that I think it's verse 13, the servants calling him daddy, they said something, if the prophet asked you to do something extraordinary, would you not do it? And that goes back to that. Even if you don't understand it, even if it's extraordinary, even if it seems outlandish, would you not do it? That's the point they're trying to drill home. Not necessarily. I don't think they care if this guy got healthy or if the guy from the previous video's dad got healthy. We're never going to know.
Which sort of makes sense in the context of, you just need to wear a mask. It's nothing too extraordinary. I don't know. I'm still picking up vibes of...
You just need to wear a mask. That's not extraordinary. Man.
I'm still picking up vibes of, where else are you going to find this sort of wisdom? Where else are you going to, you can't survive a pandemic unless you have us to read you these verses and pass on this wisdom to you. That's still the kind of vibe I'm getting, although I take your point. Fair enough.
Do we get the point? Like Naaman, we might struggle a bit at times, especially if we have our own strong viewpoint. But one thing is certain. If we follow direction coming from Jehovah's channel, we will be blessed and, more important, will remain united. Of course, the devil is not happy to see this cooperation, this beautiful unity that we enjoy. So we have to be on guard so as to maintain it.
Yeah, the devil's trying to break up the unity, it seems. Pesky devil.
Not the organization breaking up the unity of families.
I mean, let's be honest. I think I speak for both of us in saying that, people do need to wear masks, and people do need to, listen to the advice of scientists in the time of a pandemic. And in a way, I'm glad that he is giving this talk, because when you think about, I hate to generalize, but when you think about, let's say, the overwhelming majority of Jehovah's Witnesses in, say, the Bible Belt in the Deep South, there will at least be pressure on the Jehovah's Witness community in those areas when they're, constantly interacting with people who are of this mindset. Oh, we don't need to get vaccinated. Oh, wearing a mask is an affront to our freedom. And so I'm glad that this advice is being given. I just don't think that you need to attach that level of fear-mongering by invoking the devil. And I think it's possible to tell people to apply common sense during a pandemic without reading Bible verses to them.
I think it also goes to the feeling of guilt, because in America, the masks are so politicized that wearing one or not wearing one kind of proves which side you're on. And having to be neutral as Jehovah's Witness, it's like, oh, well, what should I do? I'm neutral. And it's like, yeah, but you don't want to get sick, right? So just wear it. I literally wrote, at least he's not anti-mask on my notes.
Yeah. Okay.
Like the one and only good thing that comes out of this entire video.
Yeah. And just to stress the point, because it's worth stressing, by and large, the organization's response to the pandemic has been very responsible. And it could very easily not have been. It could very easily have been a case of, our worship comes first no matter what. Regardless of what Caesar says about social distancing, the Bible demands that we meet together, so that's what we're going to carry on doing. I could easily imagine an alternate scenario where the organization was saying that and doing that. So the fact that they're not doing it, I think, is fantastic. I just wish they'd have been able to have this responsible position without layering on the doomsday fear-mongering and the we are the only path to salvation, which seems to be the underlying message.
But then would it be a Jehovah's Witness video?
It wouldn't be a cult, would it?
Right.
If they did it properly. Yeah. Yeah.
This reminds me of an event in my life many years ago when this lesson was impressed on my mind. At that time, some of the brothers did become divided, and it led to so many problems. You may remember that we had a video about those events. Let's watch a clip from that video.
Right, before we watch it, I should just mention that, as Gerrit Lösch has himself alluded, this is recycled propaganda. So we're at the point, it seems, where the organization is just having to churn out the same stuff they've already showed before. They did it twice during the convention, once where they dragged out an old story about a school teacher who became a witness that had already been covered in a JW Broadcasting episode, I think it was, or it might have been during a convention.
And probably literally every convention, every year that we've ever had a convention. Ever.
Yeah. They also wheeled out a King of the North video that was already shown literally a few weeks before the convention. And I think we're going to start. I think we're going to see this more and more, where they just recycle old stuff that they feel was particularly good or that they feel worked. And in this case, this is a testimonial from the 2018 annual meeting, which I've already done a rebuttal to. But I was debating whether to just skip this already, because as a rule, I don't like to, do rebuttals
Repeat
twice. Yeah. But I figured, you know what, it was it would have been about 3 years ago. So who knows? Maybe I've got other things to say now.
And it reminded me too of the recent brochure that I guess is now a full-blown book, where they quoted the Watchtower in the brochure. So they're literally just referring back to themselves because they're the chosen source.
Let us appeal to this authority, which happens to be us.
Exactly.
Where we say this. Yeah. But yeah, it was sort
I'm
of
right, because remember I said that thing, and that was right. So.
Not at all circular reasoning. But yeah, so it is sort of an interesting story, albeit it's propaganda and it's told a certain way, and I'm sure it leaves out things that would cause people to ask questions, but it still includes, I think, one or two interesting details. So let's proceed.
A lot of pressure was on the brothers in Romania. The Communist Party, they tried to sow distrust among the brothers, meeting with them separately and telling some brothers one thing, telling other brothers something else. Sometimes it has happened that an official posed as an interested person and was clever enough to disguise that and pretend to make progress in the truth, not only to the point of getting baptized, but even to the point of becoming an elder.
You had your hand raised there, Jana.
yeah. That part is terrifying to me.
Okay.
Because they're not only is it the us versus them, Jehovah's organization is a safe place for you, except you should also be suspicious of literally everyone.
I have another point on that, which I will come to very shortly.
Was, in reality, an agent of the secret police.
I wonder whether Arthur is one such infiltrator, Arthur Weber, who I notice is on the live chat. I think he could probably be one of the ones that infiltrated, and he went a bit too far, and some of it stuck. So he's now half a Jehovah's Witness and half not.
With the aim to find out everything about the organization. So it did lead in one case that brothers started to distrust someone that was actually appointed by headquarters. And these brothers then separated from the organization that Jehovah used. And some of them were separated for not just a few years, but for decades. And there were a large number, up to 5,000 publishers.
So we'll pause there. Thank you very much, Victoria. Old eyes for an old soul. Hey, it's Victoria. Take a shot of Wells every time he says channel. He does say channel a lot. I guess here's my issue. Either it's God's organization or it isn't, and either elders are appointed by Holy Spirit or they're not.
Or they're not.
And this is actually a point I made in my initial rebuttal. What we're guessing here, if you think about it, is essentially an admission that elders aren't appointed by Holy Spirit. Because if elders are appointed by Holy Spirit, the Holy Spirit would have known that it was a mole, and the Holy Spirit would have made sure this person didn't get appointed. So exactly. if even an undercover operative can fool people to the point where he can get appointed as an elder, isn't that case closed on whether elders really get appointed by Holy Spirit or not? Yeah. But that's not the line of reasoning that they want witnesses to have. But it is, hopefully, if there are any witnesses watching this, it should be food for thought. How can elders be appointed by Holy Spirit if we're literally getting an admission in spiritual food that it's possible for moles who are working for the government to be appointed as elders? Yeah, that's my point.
They continued to meet together. They were preaching and using material that they had left over from earlier years, but they hardly got any new material to study because they were not in touch with the organization that was used by headquarters. Attempts to bring the brothers back into the organization were made from time to time.
That is tiny
but
writing.
It seemed that the brothers from the separated organization did not have sufficient trust. But when we presented to the leader of the separated group that one from the governing body would come, he was happy about that, and he had enough trust in that case to agree that we should have a meeting and seriously talk about reunification.
This was interesting
because so
it's almost like an admission that being a governing body member is a big deal.
Yeah, right. He didn't have sufficient trust until somebody said, oh, a governing body member is willing to.
Tell you what, I'll cut you a deal.
Exactly.
if we send a governing body member, will you meet with us? Oh, a governing body member, you say? Well, that's different. Yeah, so this... And don't get me wrong, I think all witnesses understand that the governing body is a big deal and that they are basically celebrities in their own little universe. Mm-hmm. But they use a kind of self-effacing language to try and portray this idea that they're really humble and they're really lowly and they're just there to serve. It's clearly not true, though. And here because they know it's not true, they've allowed this little point to slip through that, yes, it was effectively celebrity that got this whole meeting arranged, or this idea of celebrity.
And it's driving home the point, too. Like, oh, you might not be able to, you can't trust the world. You might not be able to trust each other, but you can always trust us.
Yeah, yeah.
And so from the separated group, there were Brother Albu, who was the leader, and 4 of his main elders. And from our side...
4 of his main elders.
Pretty cool editing, though, with the TV switching.
Yeah, I like the retro stuff, by the way. I'm really fond of antiques. I'd love to... Anyway, these guys weren't just elders, they were main elders. So... I want to know what a main elder is.
What makes you a main elder?
Yeah, please explain that in more detail.
There was Brother Gerrit, our translator, and I was part of that group. Also, there were several from the country committee of Romania.
I wonder whether Gerrit Lösch got a decision in who they cast as his younger self. I wonder whether he was like, no, he is too ugly. No, he is too ugly. Ah, this one is quite good looking. He can play me, yes.
That's such a fantastic impression of his voice.
Yes, this brother must just work on his quiff a little bit. I think he might be suitable to play me. Yeah. Okay.
I remember the first night, there was a lot of accusations about what the others had done and not done, which did not create the best spirit. And we mainly listened. But everybody agreed to meet another night. And the second night, obviously, Jehovah wanted the brothers to unite again.
Obviously.
And the whole spirit was different, and the brothers talked the matters over and clarified some misunderstandings. And at the end of the second evening, I remember, the leader of the separated group, Brother Albu, said, "Let's do it, because if we don't do it now, we may never have another opportunity again." And so the decision was made.
We need to do it now, because otherwise we may never have another opportunity again. Surely that's exaggerating slightly, because nothing was stopping them from having a meeting maybe the next year or the year after. Were they just concerned about whether they'd get another governing body member to come?
Right.
Is that what they meant?
Honestly, I'm not sure. You can always return to Jehovah, like where they just afraid of being disfellowshipped for a time and losing their status as an elder, or because no doubt that happened eventually anyway.
Surely they always have an opportunity to return, or at least that's the language that you hear, as you point out, when it comes to individuals. So why was this like a once-in-a-lifetime deal, unless it was all about whether they could sit down with a governing body member or not? So, yeah.
It doesn't happen every day that 5,000 brothers come back to the organization.
So yeah, this is where Gerrit Lösch emotes.
Yeah.
And I talked about
He
this.
couldn't do it for the word love, but he can do it here.
Ooh, that is scathing, but true. Yeah, he doesn't emote all that well or all that convincingly when he's talking about how much he truly loves the brothers. But when he's taking a trip down memory lane, yeah, it seems that he's more sincere. I think he is sincere here, and I think I pointed out in my original rebuttal that it's quite an interesting window into this whole debate of, are the governing body members sincere or not? And I've long said that I think it's quite nuanced. I think that the whole thing with cognitive dissonance is that it enables two completely competing positions to be in your brain at the same time.
Right.
And, it wouldn't surprise me if, at least on some level,
They know
Gerrit
that they're
Lösch,
making it up.
yeah, he knows that he's making it up, but also simultaneously believes it, And I think if it was all just totally a scam and he was totally cynical about the whole thing, could you have faked that kind of emotion? Possibly, if you were a really good actor.
Which I don't think he is.
I don't think he is. I think that he's being sincere there. So it's quite an interesting, like I say, little window into the psychology of the governing body and the fact that at least on some level, even though they're seeing the very worst of the organization, and these are, let's be blunt, evil men who deserve to serve time for their cover-up of abuse. But they're also, as far as I'm concerned, and I've yet to see any evidence to the contrary, at least to some degree deluded and genuinely sold on their own lies.
It was honestly one of the things that, when I was trying to prove to myself that it wasn't a cult, I was like, okay, well then, what does the governing body get out of it? And the point that he can emote when it comes to winning this sort of debate and getting the followers back for himself versus, we love you guys so much, but I'm reading it directly off a prompter because I can't emote that.
Yeah.
It's definitely more of the power part of it, I think.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it's difficult to disagree because they clearly are very...
He's emotional about winning these people back.
Okay.
Not necessarily saving their lives.
Albeit he wouldn't have been a governing body member when this was said, but I take your point. He would have been at the very least an organization man is what I think you would call him, and yeah, very eager to perhaps climb the ladder, you know.
From then on, all the practical things were put in place to accomplish this reunification. They were asked to merge with our congregations. And that also took a lot of humility on their part. But
they were asked to merge with our congregations. We know why that is, don't we? It wouldn't have been a purely geographical thing. It was basically a case of divide and conquer. You know,
Exactly.
Let's break up this gang and let's make sure that
Keep
we
our
have
eye on everybody.
some of our people in each congregation, so that we can stop them from splitting again in the future. Yeah.
they were willing to do it. So they were really brothers in their heart and loved the truth. And so the reunification was accomplished, and it was a wonderful victory for Jehovah and against Satan. Reflecting on the experience with the brothers in Romania, we can see there could always be misunderstandings among humans, and there could always be even legitimate complaints about misconduct of some responsible brothers. But the important thing is never to lose trust that this is Jehovah's organization.
Isn't that an interesting message to weave in?
That was possibly the most upsetting part for me.
Sure. As an abuse survivor, if you don't mind me pointing that out.
Right. Exactly. That's exactly why. Saying there might be a legitimate complaint of misconduct. Those are his exact words.
Yeah.
That it's still on you to get over yourself and humble yourself and not lose sight of Jehovah's organization. Except this is happening on such a large scale that it's not even, no one's even surprised when they hear about it. And then not just that, but then the domestic abuse, the corporal punishment that goes on. This is, every congregation knows all about that. They just giggle about it and let it continue. This is a legitimate complaint. Like,
if there's a legitimate complaint against an individual, then that individual needs to be held accountable.
right, and this is
that individual needs to be brought to justice.
organization wide.
Yeah, but it seems that the priority here is not to bring individuals to justice and not to hold people accountable for what they've done. It's instead to maintain the cohesion of the organization.
Yeah.
That's the priority. You just wish, don't you, that, you know, ICSA, for example, or people who investigate this organization would bother to watch this material, because they're just being open, aren't they? That this is their mindset, and it's just there on open display. It's an open secret that this is their mentality.
But because they seem non-threatening and they appear okay or present well, that they continue to skate along and get away with it.
Absolutely. I'm not going to dwell on this too much more because it's infuriating.
It is infuriating, yeah.
Yeah.
That's where Jehovah's blessing is. Jehovah sees it all. Jehovah uses his Holy Spirit to keep the organization together. And what he wants to have accomplished will happen. And if we work with the Holy Spirit, then Jehovah will bless our efforts and it will be successful to his praise. Of course, these challenges were not unique to the brothers in Romania. Similar challenges occurred in other countries that were behind the Iron Curtain, including Czechoslovakia, Russia, and Ukraine.
He says that there were similar challenges in other countries, but he doesn't say whether or how they were resolved. It's interesting, isn't it? So, well, hang on. Now that you've told us that this is actually happening in multiple countries, Well, tell us how that played out, because surely it couldn't have happened in each and every country that they stitched things up, you know?
Yeah, this isn't about follow through, Lloyd. We don't know what happened to that man's dad.
To that man's
They're not
what?
going to follow just because they drop half of a fact. You're expecting the rest of the facts?
I know.
No.
I'm asking too much, aren't I?
You are.
I know. I should know better.
Oh, but on this point, I wrote a couple of things down here where he says Jehovah uses his Holy Spirit to keep his people together. Except in the instance that we literally just sat through.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you said it was years that they were separated. Like, except in that instance, the few that you're not going to follow up on how those things happened, except like when Moses went for a hike for a little while and everybody immediately defected, except when, what was that? Then the convention where half of the camp completely defects, and then Jehovah sends an angel to murder like 1,000 people or something in the middle of the night because they defected. Like, except for Adam and Eve, there are literally 2 people on the earth.
Yeah, it's...
And Jehovah couldn't keep these people together on the same note. So, like, where was the evidence, sir?
If there's any delay when there's some kind of schism from literally the one and only true organization on the earth, the one and only true religion, that's running into the years or decades, why is Jehovah messing around for those years or decades before it gets fixed? Why can't it be fixed instantly if it's really Jehovah behind it?
Right. If it really has his backing.
Yeah, good point.
So, what have we learned in this update? Jehovah's
We have learned the meaning of the word unity.
I was going to say the same thing. It's like the definition of the word unity.
We didn't know that before, but you've helped us there, Gerrit.
Organization is on the move. Even during this pandemic, we see strong evidence that Jehovah's Spirit is blessing and moving ahead the preaching and disciple-making work.
We see strong evidence during this pandemic that Jehovah's Spirit is moving ahead the disciple-making work. I think at best we can say that the disciple-making work has adapted and continued. I think that when they use terminology like moving ahead, they're literally just saying it's not stopped, you know?
Right.
Because if you have an actual decrease of 0.6%, you can say moving ahead, but it's only moving ahead in any meaningful way if it's growing. If all that's happening is that you're just not stopping,
that you just continued moving,
and your efforts are less successful because your organization is shrinking, how is that really proof of anything? It's evidence that it's just another human organization that's in the interest in the business of trying to recruit people and not being successful in that regard. Continue.
Despite many challenges, you, dear brothers and sisters, are working hard to maintain our precious unity. As a result, we are enjoying a spiritual paradise as we work unitedly together. Satan will continue to try to stir up division, even among Jehovah's people. What can we do to successfully resist his efforts? Listen to the channel that Jehovah is using, the faithful and discreet slave.
So he's again stressing this idea of the channel being the faithful and discreet slave. In my view, it's a little bit insecure the way he does that kind of repeatedly throughout. But he's also giving us this idea that, you need to follow them, don't you? You need to completely submit to whatever it is that they suggest.
Yeah, I had 2 thoughts when he was talking about this. Like, one, not only, you know, we saw that they were really doubling down on the apostate talks and being careful of that material. But I feel like I remember a time where they were really discouraging people getting together and having their own sort of like Bible study group. And I think because people are at home now and they're gathering in small groups, that it's easier for them to become even more radicalized because they're a little isolated from this channel. They're not being closely watched like those brothers who got split up. So I think it's a combination of those two fears that they have going on.
Yeah, when he's giving his summary remarks, and in the main body of his sermon, it's clear that he's more concerned about, not falling for divisive conspiracy theories and sticking with the direction of the organization. But the summary comments are vague enough to be applied to almost anything. And it kind of links in with David Splain's talk a little bit here, doesn't it? Of, don't let any outside influences affect our unity. We need to stay on course, so to speak. Many thanks to Dan D. Moving ahead by reading a 2,000-year-old book. Indeed. Thanks for the super chat. 22-inch paintbrush, gosh. And we also have a massive super chat there from Truth Seeker Atheist. Pete, I did get your email today, and I will be replying. Pete, I think we should wish Pete a speedy recovery because he's going for a procedure soon, if Pete doesn't mind me saying that. But thank you so much for the really kind support of the channel. Hi, interesting subject. Lloyd and his compatriots Mark and Javier are doing great work. Thank you so much. They're not quite my compatriots, if I'm being very precise, because they're American. But we're certainly brothers in arms in the cause. So thank you so much, Pete, and lovely to hear from you, and good luck with your forthcoming procedure. Okay. So let's let Mr. Lösch continue in his final thoughts.
Don't allow yourself to become emotionally involved with the causes of this world, whatever they may be. There's no doubt that Jehovah will richly bless all those who support our King, Jesus Christ, and the channel that he's using today, the faithful and discreet slave. From the world headquarters of Jehovah's Witnesses, this is JW Broadcasting.
And there we go. It's over. It's over. But I have done just a little compilation of Gerrit Lösch saying God's channel, the faithful and discreet slave.
Fantastic.
Instead of listening to Jehovah's channel, the faithful and discreet slave, and the channel that he's using today, the faithful and discreet slave. Listen to the channel that Jehovah is using, the faithful and discreet slave.
I mean, really, the fact that he's just repeating it again and again just tells me that there's some insecurity there,
Yeah, I counted the whole video. It was like 12 times where they're talking about listen to the governing body. It's essential for your safety. Jehovah's spirit-directed governing body. Follow the direction from Jehovah's channel. Like... I timestamped it and everything. It's ridiculous how many times that they said this. And in the closing, it was that 3 times.
If you're absolutely convinced it's Jehovah's channel, and if this is in the literature all the way through, which it is, you shouldn't have to keep reminding people of who Jehovah's channel is.
And also, who wrote this? Don't you have an entire writing department?
Yeah.
And they were just like, you know what? We're just going to copy and paste this one sentence over and over again and then fill it with some Latin.
I'm going to be honest. It wasn't... I didn't learn much from this, apart from, apart from the definition of the word unity. And apart from, again, just seeing more examples of the manipulation and as well evidence that they seem to be going down this new phase of just recycling old material,
Mm-hmm.
which when you consider the fact that they're gearing up for Ramapo, shouldn't they be increasing the amount of new material so that they don't have to drag up the old stuff?
Especially if they're getting all that ice cream money.
Yeah, indeed.
I expect a cartoon for my ice cream money.
Absolutely. So we have a viewer invasion. And what's going to
Hooray.
happen now is for the final half an hour of the show, we're going to have some viewers come on one by one. I'm dropping a link into the live chat. All I ask is that you have your camera turned on, which is to deter trolls, because trolls tend to be cowards. And also keep your comments or questions respectful and on topic. So, yes, let's see what happens. Oh, good grief. You just can't keep him away, can you? Hello, Arthur. How are you?
Hey. Hello, Connor. Nice to be back live.
We were
always
hearing
fangirl
about your
over Arthur.
country.
Yeah, of course. And I was so triggered because it was nice to rehear and re-see this piece of segment from the JW Broadcasting episode where Gerrit talked about how he came to Romania and to try to win back the brothers that split away from the organization during communism.
Do you have any insights on that story, by the way?
No, actually,
No.
I don't have more details than what has been discussed.
You could tell us, but you'd have to kill us because you were one of the moles. Is that the case?
He's an ageless mole somehow.
Yeah, well, I was 4 to 5 years old when this happened. It was in the late 80s because the organization was.
I can imagine you as a mole at 5 years old. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah.
There are very few people I would say that about, but you're one of them, Arthur. Sorry, go on. I interrupted.
Yeah, and the story was spoken about in the 2006 yearbook when they talked about Romania and how the group led by Brother Pamphil Albu was not officially in connection with the Vienna battle, because Vienna was back then responsible for Romania. That's how Gerrit used to come to Romania, and he also speaks Romanian and he holds talks in Romanian.
Oh, does he?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, he's multilingual, isn't he?
Yeah,
so Romanian, German, and
English and Italian also.
And Italian. Okay.
Yeah. I remember his life
The
story
most
that
impressive
appeared.
thing I know about him now.
Yeah.
So Gerrit's
I'd like
life.
to see him. I'd like to see him emote in Italian. I think that would be quite interesting.
Yeah.
But his life story appeared in one of the Watchtowers in 2013, I guess, and both the Italian and the German and Romanian translation of the audio material was read by him.
Okay, interesting. Well, Arthur, I'm going to bring a few other viewers on, but it's really great to catch up with you. It's a blast from the past, from the days of the last day's live stream. Lovely to see you smiling and healthy. And lots of virtual hugs coming your way.
Yeah, right. Thanks, you too.
Take care, pal. See ya. That was Arthur there. Brilliant. So let's now welcome on John. Hello, John. How are you?
Hey, doing well. How are you guys?
Very well indeed. What did you think of the governing body update?
So you had honed in on the 80% last update. And I thought that it was interesting that I think that that's an example of how the behind the scenes things that the organization tries to do and the arrangements that it makes, how they tout out the end results of those things as somehow divine and inspired. No mention in this of that letter having gone out that all but told Bethelites, you need to be vaccinated. But now that 80% are vaccinated, that came across to me as a statistic of somehow spiritual significance, or that's evidence of Jehovah's backing of the organization, when really all it was a memo that went out and people complied with it. Nothing inspired about that at all.
No.
Evidence, because he said it's evidence.
Yeah, exactly. And it reminded me of the first time that I realized that a lot of the articles that are written in the magazines are just feedback that the overseers send in as far as what the publishers are dealing with. So an article that comes out that you think, oh, this was written just for me. Well, because they're writing these articles based on feedback. I don't see how that's evidence of inspiration from above. It's coming up from the rank and file.
Yeah, a lot of these updates are them presenting something that clearly isn't evidence, as though it is, and it's not convincing at all, is it? Once you're watching these with a freed mind. Yeah,
exactly.
Wow.
I mean, again, he literally contradicted himself in that video. He was like, Jehovah is using his spirit to keep his organization together, as evidenced by these people separating in the video I literally just showed you.
Yeah, that was the point.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for joining us, John, and please do consider joining us in a future Viewer Invasion as well.
Will do.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Take care. There was John there. So we have a super chat from Mr. Scotch Pie, who says, I'm 30 years out, but it's amazing today that there are channels like this awakening people to the falsehood of the Watchtower, something that couldn't be imagined all the way back then. That's really sweet of you to say, and thank you so much for your support of the channel. That's brilliant.
Oh, I want a Scotch Pie.
I tell you what, yeah, I don't actually know what a Scotch pie is.
Neither do I. However, the pie part has me intrigued, so I'm ready for it.
I'm always down for a pie, if I'm being completely honest. Maybe you'd be able to guess from my frame that would be the case.
Same.
But yeah. Welcome to Ivan Ramos. How are you? Actually, it's Ivan, isn't it?
Yes, it's Ivan.
I remember from last time.
Ivan.
Sorry, I should have automatically remembered.
Yes.
Did you enjoy what did you think of the governing body update, Ivan?
It was hard to stay awake, honestly, to listen to some of Gerrit Lösch. But I have two thoughts that I just can't help but ask. So number one is, why don't they talk about going back to the meetings, going back door to door? If this is Jehovah's organization, why aren't they out there? I mean, they show in all the dramatizations, that in the talks where, they're out there during the Great Tribulation, they're preaching in the prisons. Why aren't they out there now? And my second thought is, if they're not going back to the congregations and not going to field service right now, why are they asking for all this money? I mean, because usually the money is for the building of the kingdom halls and furthering the kingdom and, paying the overseers. Everyone's at home watching Zoom. What do they need the money for? Your thoughts?
Yeah. I think that, you raise a great point. I think that they were struggling financially before the pandemic hit, and they are surely feeling it even more now. And yeah, you would think that ordinarily this would be a case of, there's a pandemic. We appreciate any donations that you brothers can send in, but you need to be thinking about providing for yourselves, especially if you have a family. And in these uncertain times, our expectations are different than they would be in times of prosperity. You would think that would be a really positive message to send out, but instead they had a talk dedicated to reminding people to donating in the convention. And obviously the September broadcast has 10 minutes of Tony Morris telling people to donate. So I think that speaks to an incredible layer of desperation in the organization.
Yeah, I think your questions sort of answered themselves. I feel like they're saving money by not having to pay the lights to keep the Kingdom Hall lights on or the maintenance of it all. Because people are not donating to their local Kingdom Hall, they're donating to the worldwide work, which means that they're getting more donations that way because it's taking from the local aspect of it. And if they don't go back to the Kingdom Halls, what can they do with them? They can sell them.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So that's my point, because this time last year, especially where we're at, you see, at least here in the United States, you see all the sports stadiums are at complete, jam capacity. Everything's opening. Churches are fully, they're packed. People are going back to work. It seems like now we have the vaccines. So again, it's just funny that they're the only ones that I know of, at least, unless I'm wrong, but they're not opening up. They're not talking about, hey, Jehovah's got our back. We're going to continue this preaching, and all throughout all the inhabited earth, like they preach, right? But it's all stopped. Again, is it because inevitably we're going to see the selling of all Kingdom Halls? But we won't talk about that. We're just going to focus on unity, right? Unity, like what Gerrit Lösch talked about, and just sticking to Zoom. And quietly, we'll just keep selling Kingdom Halls without really telling anyone. Do you think inevitably that's the plan here? What do you guys think?
I feel as though it's inevitable that at some point the Kingdom Halls will be sold. I did a video on this. It's a question of when rather than if, because this is an organization that is again hemorrhaging money, and the Helm's Deep position is let's sell all of this real estate that we have control over. And that's going to give us this influx of cash. The trouble is, once they do that, they've done it. They can't do it again. You can't then resell Kingdom Halls. So I think it's inevitable that at some point they will sell the Kingdom Halls. Whether they're going to transition that quickly is anyone's guess. The last I heard was that they're not considering going back to ordinary worship until, I think I heard something like November at the very latest. Now, it could be that they're just being ultra cautious. Again, this is a pandemic that targets the demographic that make up the governing body. So it could be that they're terrified of, for example, jetting around the world to do their international conventions and exposing themselves to something that could kill them. And they don't want to take any chances. On the other hand, maybe there is some conspiracy to sell the Kingdom Halls, and they're wanting to give themselves more time. Who knows? We're just going to have to wait and see. Yeah.
It's all conjecture and hearsay, but I feel like they need to make sure that they have that trust in Jehovah's channel and they have that control from this medium before they can get rid of their basic little indoctrination stations.
Yeah, it could be that they're just running the experiment a bit longer. Yeah,
if they get rid of those and then they don't have their little agents on the ground making sure everybody stays in line, then that's a whole nother issue. And then they're going to lose in the end. So I think right now is a matter of seeing how much they can maintain their position as the chosen one. And then,
according to Tony Morris, this doesn't bother him. He was waiting for this, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't bother him.
I think it probably bothers him more than he was letting on. I think he was trying to act all bullish, wasn't he?
Not enough burning flesh for him. He needs more.
Yeah. It's funny. It seems like all these talks, they're haunting themselves. Yeah. And usually material from 20, 30 years ago, it's literally month to month now. We're living first and last of the final, the last days, and it just seems like it's never-ending cringe material.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for those thoughts, Ivan. Really lovely to see you, and please tune in again for another viewer invasion. It'd be lovely to see you again.
Always. Have a good one, guys.
Take care. So that was Ivan, and we now have, hopefully with gravity not causing her any issues, Shazza live. How are you, Shazza?
Hi there, how are you doing?
I'm okay. It's just that you seem to be a Dalek today. There's an issue with sound this time, it would seem.
No, you're joking.
Yeah, you sound like a robot. Like
I'm sorry, oh no.
Gravity's okay. Everything else seems to be okay. Now it's the
It's
sound.
nice to see you right side up.
Yeah. It's okay. We can at least discern what you're saying. So, what did you think about the update?
Well, to be quite honest, I understand your point about them repeating themselves, bringing up the same thing over and over again. But to tell you the truth, right back in the 70s, 80s, when I say I left, I started becoming complacent with it and eventually ended up getting disfellowship. But it was hearing the same thing over and over and over again, same points repeated ad infinitum, bang, bang, bang. You know, that I just thought, what the hell am I doing? I'm getting totally brainwashed with the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like, if they've got even worse now, I mean, they're totally different religion then.
Yeah.
And if they've got even worse now, then I pity anybody who's in it.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really good point. I feel as though, and probably older ones will agree, that it was a more intellectual organization in the past.
Yeah.
I can remember it being a far more intellectual exercise. We had the oral reviews. I think they might still have something like that. I don't think they do, actually.
The oral reviews.
But it was a far more, you know, there was more of a process to learning your Bible and to learning about the Bible. And we used to take, for example, the All Scriptures Inspired book with us to every meeting, and that basically formed the basis of a huge chunk of the meeting. Mm-hmm. And that's a very, you know, I would question the scholarship of it, obviously, now, but there's at least an attempt at trying to at least appear. There's at least a veneer of scholarliness about the All Scriptures Inspired book. Whereas now everything is completely dumbed down. And when you do dumb things down and when you do ditch the attempt at like teaching people, you're just going to repeat things more and more and more, aren't you? Because it's only when you have the deeper points and the more intellectual points that you avoid the repetition, if that makes sense.
Yeah, quite. I agree. I mean, you know, I don't know how anybody with more than half a brain cell can stay in anymore.
Oh.
You make a good point, and it's a point that I hear routinely in the comments. How do people still believe this? But believe me, they do, and you know there are millions of them. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's a really good point. Thank you, Shaz Alive, and please do join on another viewer invasion, and hopefully there will be no further issues for next time.
I'm so sorry, but thank you very much for having me on, and I'll see you again.
Absolute pleasure. Take care,
Great
Shaz
to
Alive.
see you.
Take care. Lovely, Shaz Alive. Yeah, so that's a good point, isn't it? It must really be obvious, mustn't it, especially to the older ones, that, you know, this, I mean, it's obvious to me how much this organization's changed just in the I'm going to say 12 years since I left.
Yeah, I don't know.
But to the older ones, it
because
must just
I mean,
like...
I do remember there being a time where like televangelists were like demonized basically, and then this like sharp left into their own televangelism was a bit of a surprise. But I mean, when you're in it, you're in it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's really a testament, isn't it, to how potent the indoctrination is.
Yeah.
You could probably get even more crazy and even more dumbed down, and there would still be millions of followers, because that's how potent this stuff is, you know. Let's welcome on Cody. How are you, Cody?
Hi, Lloyd. Good. How are you?
Very well indeed. What did you think of the governing body update 7?
You know, I've been out for a while now, several years, and it's amazing that at this point in time, these guys don't have someone in their lives to be like, you know, let's really vet what we're saying here. Let's really put under a microscope what we're about to put on video for the world to see. Let's make sure this isn't going to be easily knocked down argument-wise. But they're just so clearly addicted to hearing themselves talk that they just can't help it. It's stunning.
Yeah, I take your point, and a lot of my rebuttals, I think this is this is in some ways a more refreshing way of doing it, just doing it live with a co-host. But when I'm doing my ordinary rebuttals, you know, I'm coming up against the same bad arguments repeatedly. It's a challenge for me when I'm coming up against the same bad arguments to not myself fall into repeating myself, and to not just have to say verbatim what I've said 2 or 3 videos down the line. You know, it is astonishing the way they don't give any thought whatsoever to whether what they're saying actually makes logical sense and is in any way persuasive from a logical point of view.
There has to be, in order for them to, one, be consider themselves as the governing body, apart from the cognitive dissonance, there has to be a level of narcissism. And I doubt that they take constructive criticism well. Or that the people who work for them are brave enough to bring it up, because they are Jehovah's channel. So, yeah, I even if somebody was there in their life, I could strongly doubt that they would speak up. Or that they would listen if they did speak up. There's that hierarchy that nobody likes to talk about.
And I'm on a public forum here, obviously, so I want to be really cautious what I say. But I mean, this whole push for vaccination, this is just a theory, and if I'm off base or wrong about something, please just call me out. But I have a really hard time believing that they actually care about the health of rank and file witnesses. To me, it's like they want to get back to business. You know, they're hurting. We know they're hurting. Like you put it really well yesterday in your rebuttal, Lloyd, palpable desperation. I mean, that's clearly on here. And they want to get back to business. It's really hard to keep people indoctrinated and on the hook via television in their home. So the sooner we can get back to normal, and, you know, maybe we can start salvaging what we're losing here. Just my theory, you know.
I think it's not even... you raise a really good point. And in fact, we had further evidence of this kind of 2-tier system in this update, because you heard him say, you know, we need to protect the Bethel family because that's where the spiritual food's coming from. So if a certain type of Jehovah's Witness gets more protection because they're part of the supply chain of spiritual food, it seems, and that's one way of explaining why there was far more robust language regarding the vaccines to the Bethel family than we've so far heard for Jehovah's Witnesses.
Absolutely, I agree. Well, I want to take up a lot of time here. Really happy to be on the show. Lloyd, I owe you a tremendous debt of gratitude. I would not be sitting here today if it wasn't for the work you're doing and your channel. Not to take anything away from everybody else that's out there doing similar work. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of it, almost too much at this point, but we all know such thing is too much either. So thank you very much for everything that you do. I really appreciate it. Please keep it up.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on, and please do join us in the future of your invasion if you can.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Take care. Excellent. Yeah, I don't know. It does seem to be a little bit of a 2-tier system, doesn't it? And you know, the Bethel family.
He also kind of highlighted that point where I was saying how he got emotional in the video about recovering the followers. But it's really about the win and getting back to business. Yeah.
Oh, they definitely want to get back to business. We have Gabriel. How are you, Gabriel?
I am. It's very nice to talk to you.
Nice to talk to you. What did you think of Governing Body Update number 7?
I have mixed feelings about it, actually. But I can just say that I was born and raised in the religion, but during my upbringing, I was actually missing so many opportunities with other people because, you know, they are so close-minded people. But at the same time, I'm just thinking that the Jehovah's Witnesses are actually kind of innocent, that are indoctrinated by the governing body.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, I often get comments on the channel saying, you know, why are you bashing Jehovah's Witnesses? To which I say, it's because I care about Jehovah's Witnesses and respect Jehovah's Witnesses that I make
Right.
these videos. It's
It's
the
the
governing body
teachings
that's
and it's the
taking advantage of them.
indoctrination
Yeah.
and the abuse of the people and the using of them. That's the upsetting part that you need to attack. It's not the individual person, because we've all been there.
Yeah.
And the things that you did because you thought you were doing it for God is the part that hurts your heart, because you know there are so many people using all of themselves for people who are deceiving them. So I think you're onto something there.
Definitely.
But the thing is that my mother, she is still a believer, and every single time I question her, she gets defensive and she don't want to talk to me because she gets a little bit angry. But at the same time, I can't blame her because she had a really difficult childhood.
Yeah.
But the best thing is just to ask them questions so they can just think about so they can think about the truth.
Yeah, you've just got to be kind and patient, haven't you? Unfortunately, basic human psychology negates forcing information into someone's face. You know, no one likes to have information that contradicts their sincerely held beliefs just pushed in front of them.
Can I offer rather controversial, possibly contradictory to what I just said, advice?
Sure.
So today is actually the 2-year anniversary of my Nana passing away. And she was a devoted Jehovah's Witness all the way up until the very last breath. And I started waking up before she died. And I held her hand on her deathbed and was like, I want to see you in paradise. And I told her, it's still a plan, Nana, even though I knew I didn't believe it anymore. I feel like there's when certain people get to a certain age or they get far enough, if she's still talking to you and has a good relationship with you, and is open to having just a relationship, basically, then I might leave her alone with it, because it might not do her good to wake up to the fact that she's wasted so many years. So that, I mean, if it's not hurting her financially, if it's not threatening her life, I would constantly pay attention to what they're teaching, because they want that blind obedience. So on your end, I would not let go of keeping abreast of what's happening in the organization. But if you don't think that she's hurting and also she still talks to you, then maybe find a happy medium. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes sense. But I also want to say that I'm sorry for your loss. I know how it is. I know how it is to lose someone, because back in 2019, my sister were going to have a son. He died inside her belly. And I know that Jehovah's Witnesses aren't allowed to get tattoos, but I did. I don't know if you can see that, but I did tattoo his name, Theo.
Oh, that's really sweet.
But
Yeah, I'm sorry for your loss too.
Thanks. But life is extremely difficult. But it gets more difficult when you lose your whole family because of you don't believe in what they believe in.
Yes.
I think as long as you're keeping things kind and respectful, and the lines of communication are open, anything can happen. And I take Jana's point on board. I also think that it gets a little bit tricky because I've met people in their 70s or heard of people as well in their 70s and 80s who still value freedom at that late point in life. And who knows how someone might feel about being lied to. Yes, it's a horrible thing to wake up to, but sometimes freedom is worth it. So I think bottom line, as long as you're keeping a respectful, kind, patient dialogue, and you're not pushing information on someone, and they feel like they can approach you when they have questions, and they're in control of the whole process, I think that's a very healthy situation, and you just never know what might come about. So just persevere and just be kind, and hopefully you never know what might happen.
The only thing you can actually do is hoping for the best.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
But
stay positive.
But don't hope too much.
Fervent prayer.
Yeah, but if you hope too much, you might get disappointed.
Yeah, don't do what they do on the other side, which is expect. So they were telling people at the convention to basically expect unbelieving ones to wake up. And, you know, we're not saying that on the other side. We're saying you need to be realistic and you need to manage your expectations. But if you are able to keep things patient and kind and respectful, who knows, you know, and try and stay positive and try and celebrate those small victories. And sometimes a victory is just being able to have a normal conversation, irrespective of whether you're persuading them to wake up to the fact they're in a cult or not.
Exactly.
Thanks so much.
I'm sorry, but I also want to tell you that I'm sorry for my English. And the thing is that I'm also extremely nervous to have this talk with you because, like I said, I get nervous because...
You don't have to apologize, though, because, Gabriel, we've understood every single word that you've said. And your English is far better than my, I think, Spanish. So
far better than some Americans' English.
Yeah.
So you're doing great.
Thanks. But I can just say that I can speak a little bit English. I can speak Spanish, Castilian, and Swedish, but I hope you understand what I'm saying.
We understood everything. Yeah, I really appreciate you calling in. And please do consider calling in future viewer invasions as well. You'd be very welcome.
Thanks.
Okay, take care, Gabriel. Wasn't Gabriel wonderful? Really, I really do feel for Gabriel. It's a horrible situation to be in, and I think many of us have been in that situation. But it seems to be, you know, taking it in his stride, which is fantastic. We have. I'm noticing 3 more in the queue, and then I think we're going to wrap up. Salad King has a very impressive setup by the looks of things. Hello, Salad King.
We warmly welcome you to this excellent apostate live stream. How's it going, Lloyd? How are you doing, man?
I'm expecting you to pull off your mask, and it's Stephen Letts. And I would have got away with it if it wasn't for you pesky kids.
I grew my hair out.
Oh. So what did you think of Governing Body Update number 7?
I wasn't able to make it for the whole stream. I just got out of work, so I caught the last few minutes. But I was lucky enough to hear Gerrit Lösch calling the Jehovah's Witnesses the channel of God, basically. And that just made me laugh because I can only think of Jeffrey Jackson saying in court, hand on the Bible. I think that would be a presumptuous.
Yeah.
And I don't know. That just makes me... It just makes me smile to think. I hope there's like some infighting there or something, or I don't know.
Which one of them is the apostate? The one that says that they are the chosen channel, or the one that says they're not?
I would guess the one that says they're not. I don't know.
I don't think there'll be any infighting.
Going to be the next.
If anything, there was probably high
governing body member.
If anything, there was probably high fives after the Royal Commission because that was classic theocratic warfare, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, they got away with it.
Yeah.
They got away with it.
So yeah, good point, and great setup, by the way. Are you a creator or a musician or
both?
Yeah.
Yes.
Both. Okay, excellent.
Very, small time channel. Do a little voice acting stuff on the side. That's where the Let impression comes from.
Okay, fair enough.
I used to call him Brother Gump when I would watch the broadcast because I could not take that dude seriously.
Yeah. Life's like a box of chocolates. You could imagine him saying it, couldn't you? Yeah.
I know.
Good grief. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Salad King, and I will look out for you in future viewer invasions. Please do regale us with your presence again.
All righty. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on. You have a good day, you guys.
Take care. Salad King there, everyone. And we welcome David. How are you, David?
Good. How are you?
Hi, David.
Very well indeed.
Hey, good to see y'all.
What's your shirt say?
What does your shirt say?
Sorry, it's kind of embarrassing. It's Goku from Dragon Ball Z.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So,
that sounds like entertainment that wouldn't be approved. So, yeah. So what did you think of...
Probably a good second school talk, I'm sure.
What did you think of Governing Body Update number 7?
Well, obviously I enjoyed it, as I enjoy everything from the governing body. But no, I thought it was interesting because at the very beginning of the update, Lösch is talking about, he's trying to paint this picture of growth within the organization. But he used very specific words. He said various branches are reporting an all-time peak, and he said many have reported peaks in memorial attendance, but he didn't say that there was an overall gain as far as membership goes. And it's interesting because they're very selective in trying to paint this picture of growth within the organization. And it makes me wonder, if membership numbers continue to decline throughout the years, like at what point in time are they going to have to face the facts and just kind of, come clean to their members, say, hey, we're having a loss here. And when they do fess up to it, I'm wondering what kind of spin they'll put on it, how they're going to portray it as, oh, well, we're
the greater number will cool off.
Is still supporting us, but for some reason, yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like, oh, it's going to, like, I remember being a witness when I would hear like, oh, the work is going to slow down at some point, as like when it's really close to the end, the work is going to slow down. And you wonder, like, they don't want people to realize this is happening, but at what point in time are they going to, just have to like come clean and just talk about it, and try to explain it away. And I didn't know if you guys had any thoughts on that particular scenario or not,
I'm going to be honest. I was kind of expecting them to address the decrease right out of the gate. So I remember when, obviously I was celebrating the fact that this was the first decrease in 42 years. And then we had, not long after that, the annual meeting. And obviously the annual meeting would have been recorded when they knew about the decrease. So I was watching the annual meeting, the 2020 annual meeting, expecting them to address it, and they didn't. And then I was like, okay, well, they haven't addressed it in this one. It will be in probably the next governing body update. It wasn't in that. It wasn't in the next one or anything like that. And yeah, they've just totally buried their heads in the sand and just decided not to talk about it at all, which is very, very interesting. I can't help but wonder whether they are perplexed themselves. It's clearly taken them off guard to some degree, and maybe they're trying to see whether this is purely about COVID or whether there's something more underlying to it. And if the numbers are still decreasing after the pandemic has largely been and gone, and I happen to think that coronavirus will be with us now for the foreseeable future in some form, but they're probably waiting to see whether this is a freak situation, and then they don't need to think about it too much. I think Jana's point is very prescient about the greater number cooling off. I think once they have really convinced themselves that this is a long-term situation and that the numbers really are declining, year on year over multiple years, that's when they'll probably start to put a prophetic spin on it. But yeah, I think the fact that they refused to talk about it at all was actually very interesting.
I think they're gonna, if they do that, when they finally do acknowledge it, that's when the message is supposed to change from one of salvation to one of
Oh, the hailstone message.
right.
Well, that's another one where once they press that particular button, they can't unpress it, you know?
Exactly.
'Cause then they've got decades and decades of hailstone
So
message.
that's why they're probably holding off on acknowledging that, because they're like, oh, well, and that signifies this one. How are we going to talk ourselves out of that? Not good for business.
Well, I mean, I will say they have a unique ability to seemingly talk themselves out of these buffoonery mistakes of.
Oh, they'll come up with something.
Yeah, they're going to.
It won't be remotely convincing, but they'll come up with something.
There's a documentary that you can find on YouTube. It's called The Cult Next Door. I have no idea. I forget what the name of this cult is. But their leader professed that he would be raptured and that the end of times or Armageddon would start, basically. And then the whole documentary is just like a countdown until that day. They all go out into like the middle of the desert. The guy's just sitting there with a video camera waiting for nothing to happen. And then when nothing happens and the day changes into the next day, they all cheer and walk away with the leader who is not raptured. So, yeah. They will have to try to talk themselves out of a corner, but I mean, when you're that far in, unfortunately.
Well, hopefully it wakes a few more people up anyway, if nothing else.
I'm sure it will. Whatever they come up with, it won't be convincing, and some people won't be buying it, and it might cause them to start asking questions. But it will be fascinating because, you know, this is the underlying problem that they have. It's not true, you know. and the more decades pass, the more awkward this whole 1914 thing gets. So yeah, it's going to be really, really interesting to see how the organization continues to try and dig themselves out of this. So yeah. David, thank you so much for your question, and nice to see you, and please do join us for a future viewer invasion as well, if you can.
All right, have a good one. We'll see you.
Take care, David. Bye. And before we take our final caller, really huge super chat here from Jonathan Amoroso. Thanks for all you do. I was able to stop the automatic payments to Watchtower. Now I can give it to you. Wow, thank you. Still working my way out. Well, thank you so much, Jonathan. That's really very much appreciated. And
I hope that's not your real name.
Yeah, I hope that's a pseudonym. Otherwise, I'm sorry to say
otherwise you have worked your way out.
Kind
there you
of
go.
blown your fade there. But no, this is very helpful for the channel and helps to cover our plans for the future. We're currently working on a documentary which we've done filming for. We have the arduous task of editing it over the next few weeks, and so Tibor and I will be waist deep in that. But I really do appreciate the efforts to support my work on Patreon and through the super chat. So thank you very much indeed, Jonathan. And now we have our final viewer invasion caller, Hillary. How are you, Hillary?
Hi, how are you?
Very well indeed.
Glad to hear it. I was just having this thought. Well, obviously we were all really exhausted by the time they finished explaining the word unity to us. But it's just one of those things where it's like they already have everybody reading the Bible literally, right? And it just interests me that they not only want you to have the most simplistic, dumbed down version of the Bible, literally as it's written, this happened, it's absolutely the truth, but they have to do it with words too. Because we all have this, like, what do you think when you think of unity? Is it we're all the same? We're all one? We're all the same thing? No. It's we all get along with each other despite our differences, and we like pull together, which is the complete opposite thing that they have. It's just so funny to me. It's like, no, we have to redefine unity. And it's like all the asterisks at the bottom of the Bible changes. Like, oh, but it does require a 6-paragraph explanation because we changed the meaning of the thing. So just to let you know. And then it's also gaslighting because it's like giving you well, you said unity was just about Jehovah's Witnesses. No, what I said was it's togetherness. So they can point back to that very simple, very like easy to stomach definition that they gave in the beginning, but forget that they explained it for an hour. Like I don't understand it. Oh, made me mad.
It's just an effort to appear superior and to control the dialogue, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And it is very frustrating. I think, in fairness, they're not doing it as frequently as they used to do it. It used to be literally every single JW Broadcasting episode there was a definition of a rudimentary word given, and I think they've sort of cottoned on now. Although obviously this one slipped through. Whether that's to do with, we daren't tell Gerrit that this is actually a little bit insulting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's all ultimately, infantilization. If we can treat our audience as though they're stupid, maybe they'll believe that they're stupid, and maybe they'll be more dependent on us. And also, we're going to decide what words mean, and that will give us some air of authority,
Because if they decide what the words mean, then they decide if that's the message that it gives you.
Yeah,
So.
they're like a narcissistic boyfriend. Like, that didn't happen. You didn't hear that. This is what we said. This is what it means. It's just crazy.
You understood it wrong.
Yeah.
I've never had a narcissistic boyfriend, but I'll take your word on that.
What? I'm shocked.
But
She's
yeah,
right.
I had a couple of them. They're very similar. Like, I don't know what reality you're living in. That's what they always start off with.
Oh, okay. No, it's there's so much narcissism and manipulation, isn't there? It's beyond a joke. But yeah, it's in every single production of theirs now. There's some element of control and some element of coercion, and I hopefully you found our review of it helpful. And if only
I can't even stomach it on my own. I need you for this. I really, truly do. I can't watch it by myself because I'm just like yelling at my phone. At least I have something to laugh with.
Sure. At least it's validation for the fact that you're not going crazy.
Yeah.
So.
Like, maybe do I want to go to a meeting? This is pretty interesting.
It's the end of the world because there's a pandemic. Maybe I should go back.
I didn't know what unity meant. Now I do.
Now I do.
Have something to learn.
You wouldn't have got that unless it was Jehovah's organization. So
that's right.
Webster could not help you out when it comes to that.
No.
Well, Hillary, thank you so much for calling in, and please do call through for a future viewer invasion if you can. It's been lovely speaking to you.
You too.
Take care. Bye-bye. And that's it. That's it for today's show. What an amazing viewer invasion. So many really good points and questions.
Mm-hmm.
And I must thank my wonderful co-host, Johnny. You've been fantastic.
Thanks for having me on.
My plan, by the way, I might as well, let people know and simultaneously ask if you're okay with it. But my plan is to kind of have a rotating panel of co-hosts. So if it's okay with you, you can go on rotation and we can see you again in a future review rebuttal. Would that be okay?
Yeah, I'd love to come back.
Wonderful. Because you know your Bible, Jana, and you correct. you remind me where I've strayed. And
yeah,
it's good.
Some things just don't go away.
You had your Bible actually there, didn't you? You've got it there in front of you, haven't you?
No. It's in a box. It's in a box somewhere.
I have a few Bibles within arm's reach. Maybe.
No kidding.
Yeah. Mostly New World translations in various shapes and sizes.
Exactly. Abundance of literature right behind you.
So, viewers, I hope you've enjoyed our review of Governing Body Update number 7. If you haven't already checked out my review of the September JW Broadcasting episode, which is hosted by Patrick LaFranca, please do hop on over to that video. You will find it interesting, I promise you. There's all sorts of stuff in there where Patrick LaFranca shows us his amateur skills as an amateur psychologist. And we also have a 10-minute a 10-minute talk by Tony Morris, not begging for donations, merely talking about the need to donate. So whatever the difference there is. So please do check that out. I will be back for the next Governing Body update. I don't know when it will be, but I will certainly try and keep on top of it. And thanks once more to Jana for your co-hosting skills.
Mm-hmm. Happy early birthday.
Yes. And we're marking the anniversary of Jana's appearance. Was it the last appearance or the first appearance?
Yeah, when I got announced, actually.
Of
September
course,
10th.
yeah. If you haven't checked out Jana's interview, I will put a description below after the fact, but you should be able to easily find it on the channel. It's a really interesting story. I
Looks like
recommend
me.
you check it out. Yeah. So viewers, that's all we have time for. Don't forget to subscribe to the Lloyd Evans channel for more such videos. And as always, thank you for watching. Take care, everyone.